currently developing the game Pirate Empire. And in last episode I talked about the idea for the game and the reasons for creating it. But now let's start exploring what the game is actually going to be about. Last week I showed you this image and told you that I wanted the game to both be able to be played passively and actively. But now, let's expand this to a tree structure and let's talk about what you're actually going to be doing while playing it passively or actively. For this to work as intended, I feel that it is important that the player feels a sense of progression no matter what playstyle they use. And therefore, I think that no matter what playstyle they use, they shall be able to buy bigger ships and do trading, either to get upgrades or sellable goods. My idea for the game is that it's going to feature a very big map, so big that it will take you a while to travel from one place to another. And therefore, one of the actions you can do while playing passively is to set the game to do long distance travels. That could for example be by going into your map and then clicking somewhere, and then it will say that it will take those 4 hours or whatever it takes to do. And the idea behind that would be that you for example are able to see on the map what shops or what cities that lay around the area, what they sell and what price they sell for. So you for example could find one city that sells sugar for a certain price and then another one across the map that sells sugar for twice that or for half of that. The idea being that you buy low and sell high, and that way you're able to earn money while playing passively. This can naturally be expanded in many ways, but I feel like it's a good foundation. I also want the player to be able to have another source of passive income. Last episode I mentioned the commander table, and the idea here is generally that whenever your ship reaches a certain size, and whenever you take over other ships, they could maybe be added to your army, let's say, your fleet of pirates, and you're able to send them out on missions. I have a similar idea that you're able to take over forts or castles in the sea and do the same thing. Now, for the active tree, the player will be able to do short distance travel. So that would mean able to move where the player is able to see on their screen. I also want them to be able to do ship battles, and I think fort battles as well. And one of the things that I think will motivate the players in the long run will be to go for legendary upgrades. I think the ships should be upgradable, not only in size, but also in maybe equipment of some kind. But the exact idea behind this I haven't figured out yet. Now, at the current point in time, this tree might not look that big. But one major thing that can happen here is a thing that happens to a lot of indie developers. Content creep. Your game simply becomes bigger and bigger in scope with no sign of slowing down. And this is one of the main factors that can lead to burnout. I know myself that whenever a task seems too big to handle, it is very tempting to simply not do it. And even though this tree does seem somewhat small, the thing that needs to be done inside them individually are not. Now, let me tell you a story. I study robotics engineering. And back in my third semester, my group and I had to develop this system that allowed two computers to play a game of tic-tac-toe with each other, only using sounds. And when we began, we kind of just separated the work between three people. 2 people do this, 2 people do this, and 2 people do this. And that worked well during the development, but when we reached the end, and we had to combine it all, we very quickly realized that we all have had a different vision of how this was supposed to work together. And we had to fix it up, and we had to do a lot of changes, and we agreed that it would have been easier if we had just planned around this from the beginning. And therefore, whenever we do projects now, we have a way stronger focus on the architecture of the software and the infrastructure in general. Now, I will admit that sometimes this can be one of the more boring processes when starting a new project. Generally speaking, whenever you start a new project, you're kind of hyped for it and just want to get going. But if I, for example, just started working on a combat system right here, without really having a context for how it's supposed to work together, and having the foundation in place, I might end up just having something that doesn't work and might have to redo it or stuff like that later. So it's really important that all of this gets fixed now. generally speaking, it is almost impossible to get all of it correct in the beginning. But ideally, you would save as much time as you're able to. But if we take out 3, one of the more demanding things is the size of the map. I want it to be very big. Maybe 50 to 100 or 200 islands. So I had to figure out what it took to create an island. I first tried using Unity's terrain system, and please ignore the color. But I was not satisfied with it. So I tried creating one manually, and that I was very satisfied with. Looks great. However, it took multiple hours almost to make. I was a bit slow, I will admit. But yeah, I can't use multiple hours to create this. And this is again one of the things about content creep. If I am too ambitious, I'm not going to finish it. So, here are a few of my ideas to actually make this doable. I will be going for a more streamlined design. So instead of creating every island manually, I'll create a program that is able to generate islands. So that way, ideally I would spend maybe 10-20 hours to create this program. But when it comes to creating every island individually, it can be done with a few clicks. And likewise, should a lot of the other processes in the game be able to easily be implemented. So ideally we would only have to make it once and then more or less drag and drop it upon the characters that we need to have it. The different systems that it is needed will be developed over time. However, I am currently starting to set up the different things that is definitely needed, like an item database, ship database, dialogue system, inventory system, and all sorts of stuff like that. It's a long process, but the results is definitely going to be worth it. But that was everything I had to talk about for now. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope to see you next time.